What's up, guys? Welcome to Grease Lightning Reactions. We're here for the top 10 anime of 2016, according to my opinion, according to my enjoyment. If you haven't seen part 1, that is also up. That goes through 20 through 11. And the last show that we left off on was Bungo Stray Dogs, season 2. I will say that this top 10 section was very, very difficult for me. Everything aside from the top 3 has moved around. It's too many places for me to even... I eventually just got to a point where I was like, alright, being in the top 10 alone is enough. I just moved them so many times. So really, when I'm ranking these, 4 through 10, you can say that a lot of them are interchangeable. Probably 4 through 9 are very interchangeable. Into various spots, but ultimately this is what I ended up with. It looked okay to me, so I'm gonna roll with it. So without further ado, let us begin with number 10. Number 10 is KonoSuba, or KonoSubarashi Sekai no Shukufuku wo. I forget what the whole thing means. KonoSubarashi Sekai, what a wonderful world, right? I think that's what it means. I don't know what the end part means. But yeah, so this show currently has a season 2 airing. Really enjoying it still. On the onset, looks like a lot of other shows. There's a main protagonist. He's taken to a different world under really strange circumstances. Pretty much stuck there and has to defeat evil. Now gives you no impression of what this freaking show is. Not at all. Right away, this is not really a spoiler because it happens in 2 seconds in the beginning and is not pivotal to the plot at all. Main character, shut-in guy, stays at home all the time, a NEET, as they say. And he gets hit by a truck and he dies. And he's brought to the presence of basically a goddess. He wakes up and he's asked basically that, I don't remember what the exact circumstance was, but basically you had either the choice of being reborn, I think, or something that's more akin to what he would like. Maybe a heaven for him, I guess. There's a world in need of someone who can stop this demon king from destroying the world, basically. And that's the other option, is if you want to do that, I could also send you to that world. And if you go to that world, you also get one thing to take with you. Can be anything you want. And through a bunch of random stuff that happens, he ends up taking this goddess with him who has been very stuck up and is acting like a know-it-all. Takes her with him, and thus the adventures start. It is a comedy through and through. Really funny. The main character is fantastic. His surrounding cast is really interesting, and they're all funny. Every single one of them that is in the main cast. They have the weirdest kind of a freaking what is it called? A masochist. They got this girl who's loved explosion magic. It's one of the most beautiful things ever I've seen, animation wise. It's explosion magic. And then you got the goddess who is just always complaining because she's a goddess and now she's stuck here, and it's oh man, the interactions between these characters are perfect. And I think it's always a good sign when I feel like the cast of an anime is having a ton of fun acting. I don't know what it is, but in this show, it is very clear that everyone is having a ton of fun. It almost feels like they're going off script and just chatting with each other, but it's amazing. Now, there's some edgy scenes a little bit, so if that's something that you absolutely hate, that is something to consider. But, overall, Kazuma as the main character is enough, even alone, to get me through this entire series. But with that surrounding cast and how funny the enemies and stuff are, and the mundane things you have to get through, if you're an adventurer, you have to figure out exactly how you're going to start off. You start off with the tiny things, but they're just normal people and they suck at everything, doing stupid little jobs, when you're playing RuneScape or something, cutting logs and killing chickens and shit. That's literally how it really starts, and things just go from bad to worse, and nothing is right in this world. And it's funny. This is really funny. You just laugh at their circumstances because this misfortune is on another level. So, yeah, that's KonoSuba. I think it's a really, really fun show. There is one more comedy I have on this show. I mean, on this list that I think was better, but I think it's one of the best comedies I've seen in years. So, if you want a nice little laugh, and it's animated pretty well too. I think it has a very nice look to it, very colorful, and they do a bunch of really. They have a lot of fun with facial expressions and stuff, how they animate that stuff. So it's. Overall, it's really, really, really fun to watch. So, number 10, KonoSuba. Moving on to number 9. And number 9. Now, number 9 is going to be one that a lot of people are probably going to disagree with. And yet, this number 9 I had all the way up to like 5 or 6 at some point. But I just had to look back because it was spur of the moment at the time. Like I said, these things moved a lot. This is Re:Zero. No, I forget what. That's not the full name of it, of course. Another show that is based on a dude enters a freaking another world. Yet he doesn't really have a task per se when he reaches there, but he has no way out, and he has to figure out things, and he has no idea. So in that sense, similar premise to a lot of shows again, but. Right away, within the first few seconds, you can tell that there's something wrong. Starts off, dude's in a convenience store. You get a flash of something pretty sinister. Next thing you know, you're in like a fantasy world, and that is just the start of things. The entire first episode, I think it's a part 1 and part 2 episode. The entire first half until the very end of the episode seems like something that is very, very, very skippable. Because, again, you got a charismatic main character. At first, he did kind of rub me the wrong way. I didn't really like how he spoke, but it started getting better and better as you get more familiar with him. But, there is a curse on this man that basically puts him... how do I say it? He hits checkpoints. That is the best way to say it. There is a lot of misfortune that occurs. Dying main characters. This is not much of a spoiler, but death is like the central focus of this freaking series. Finding the ideal path, and then moving forward to the next checkpoint. This guy, it's hard to talk about because I don't want to say too much because there's a lot of surprising scenes. But, yeah, I have to say that. Like, yeah, he dies over and over and over and over again until you figure out exactly what he needs to do to get past that point. And you just get hints along the way of what's going on, what's wrong. It's never just one thing. You fix one thing, another thing happens. You fix the other thing. Oh, you didn't think of this other thing. This is also something that could have happened. There's so many permutations. And you would think that when you were restarting back and forth, it would be a little mundane to watch, but it's not at all. If you've watched the movie Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise, you know what this is like. Groundhog's Day, not a movie that I've actually watched, but I really need to watch it. Similar situation. This, like, it's really strange because there are these very, very, very dark moments, and then there's also this, like, almost dating aspect going on at the same time. There's a huge, like, best waifu argument thing going on for this show. And I think that disconnect is really the main reason why this is a little lower. I felt like there was a portion of the series where it was focusing on that stuff, and it almost seemed like we had forgotten about how serious this position was. And I also, like... Okay, I'm on one side of the argument. If you've seen my reactions, I don't buy some of the romance in the show. So it's not only that there is an element of disconnect in the show because there is this romance that completely takes you out of like the serious nature of things. But I can be okay with that. But the romance itself is hard for me to watch at times because it feels it's like it just feels kind of messed up because you're getting reciprocated. Like it's a very one-sided relationship for the most part, and then there's another relationship that shows up later, but we're not going to talk about that. So in that regard, it is a little lower. And then, you know, after a few deaths, the dying itself becomes something that isn't as surprising, but the individuals that are responsible for that death, and then you get a lot of like supernatural elements in the show that you didn't think would be part of it. This is like throws whole new elements at you. These are positives I'm talking about, and you get thrust into situations that seem like there is no way to rectify them in another checkpoint, but the way they go about these things makes sense to me. So the tactical perspective of this show is also something that I really enjoyed. White Fox does a great job animating it, of course. I think every show in this top 10 has been animated pretty well. Yes, I would say so. It has a lot of intrigue. It might be one of the most intriguing shows of the year. You know, Erased was another one that was just the element of, what the heck is going on and why is this happening? You're constantly asking yourself these questions. And it throws like really, really like a ton of curveballs at you. You're like, you don't see those coming. I think it would be higher if I had an overall like greater love for a lot of these things. And also there are a lot of good series, and when I look back on it, it just ended up at this point. What can I say? I highly recommend anything in this top. I should stop saying highly recommended. Everything in this top 10 is highly recommended, without caveats. Aside from like knowledge of previous seasons for some of these, but otherwise, I should just stop saying it's recommended, because it's recommended. Everything here is recommended. So yeah, that's going to be number 9, ReZero. On to number 8. Now, number 8 is a series that I actually started on my own, and I just couldn't stop watching. That is Natsume Yujin Go, Natsume's Book of Friends Season 5. 5 seasons. I don't even remember. I think it's 13 episodes a season, and then there's an OVA or two that goes alongside it. But it's a fantastic, fantastic series that I had heard a lot about. But when I see seasons that are this long, I sometimes am intimidated by it. Like there are certain series that I really, really want to watch. I wanted to watch the Monogatari series, but I didn't start live reacting it for a while because I didn't know if I wanted to do the time commitment yet. Gintama, when I had a ton of episodes to watch in between, I wasn't sure if I wanted to live react to every single one. I want to watch Legend of the Galactic Heroes. That's 110 episodes long. Yeah, eventually I got to the point where I was like, if I really want to enjoy something that's supposed to be like a masterclass and it's just that long, you suck it up and watch it. You don't have to watch all of it at once. It doesn't matter how long it takes if you're watching it on your own. That became my mindset, and that's what really happened with Natsume. Natsume's Book of Friends is about Natsume. He's the main character, who is living in a small town, but he views it with a very different, he sees entirely different things. He is aware of a whole different plane of existence, basically, which is like the yokai plane. Yokai is like basically spirits. He can see them, and he's constantly being chased by them because his grandmother was a very powerful, had a ton of spirit energy, and ran into a lot of spirits in her past, a lot of yokai, and basically made them subservient to her, and she took away their names. Now, the very premise is that these names are, having someone's name is all powerful. It gives you pretty much control over them, and each of these names is put into this book of friends, and Natsume inherits this, but there's a lot of unfound, like the yokai think he has the same scent as his grandmother, and they think it's her, and he's constantly being chased back. And eventually, in the very first episode, he runs into a spirit that teaches him about all this. It's this fat-ass cat, which is my favorite character in this entire series. It's not just a cat, but you'll see if you actually start the series. And tells him about, like, the responsibility. And he really wants this book because it's that powerful. But Natsume, being a great person, wants to return the names to these people because he has no interest in anything like this. He wants to live a pretty much normal life, but he's curious about his grandmother, about her past, and he goes out on this adventure. It's not really an adventure because he's still living at home, but it's an episodic series where he runs into different yokai. But the main reason this series is so good is because every single episode has some type of great moral context, something to teach, and it's just the storytelling is on another level. The only reason this show is actually this low is because it hasn't changed anything from previous seasons. This could be a top 5 show easily in any season if I hadn't seen it done before. The other element of all this is that Natsume is not living with his parents. He's living with this couple, this older couple that has the best mom in all of anime. I think she is amazing. But finding out about his past, how he was shifted from family to family, and the reasons why he's been isolated, because you have to think about, this guy has been seeing these spirits since he was very, very young. Think about what would happen if you were a child and you were seeing all kinds of demons and spirits, and they were messing with you when you were trying to sleep, and you could see them outside the window at school and stuff like that. These emotional, this emotional trauma that he's basically suffered from this entire experience from childhood. He's eventually gotten to the point where he's starting to live with these things. He knows that not all of them mean harm, but exploring that past, exploring the entire society. There's a whole society that is aware of these people. He's not the only one that can actually see them. There's powerful spirit users, and there's a whole political situation with them as well. And then you have the political situation, you have the yokai situation, you have him with his friends from school, and that relationship, the relationship with the people that he lives with, all kinds of things going on. And then there's entire side characters that you could actually just watch as main characters because they're written that well and they're that likable. The antagonists are very complex people, and you can see what they're doing from their point of view. There is an antagonist, but most of the time it's more about Natsume and him learning more and more about yokai and trying to help them or get away from bad situations. So yeah, it's like an anime of understanding. I think that a lot of people have said that it's very similar to Mushishi if you've watched that series. I've never watched it. That is something I want to watch in the near future. But yeah, Natsume Yujin Show Season 5, there's a Season 6 that was just announced for next season, the spring season. So if there's ever a time when you're going to start watching, I would say, you can watch Season 1 through 4. I have all of Season 5 that I've been live reacting to. There is a live reactor out there that is also starting from the beginning. Mackenzie Critiques, if you want to watch someone that is also starting a series, like you want to watch reactions of someone, you can go watch him. I don't know how long he's going to take, I guess, per se. It's a longer series. He's done a good pace, so if you want to watch someone, I know there's at least him that is doing it. And then I have Season 5 onward because I watched on my own, and yeah. So if you can't tell, it's a ringing endorsement. This is one of the ones I can speak super passionately about. Like I said, in any other, if I was watching Season 1, Season 2, it would be near the top of my list. But it's still top 10, even though it doesn't change too much. That's not a negative to me. I just think that it has room to go even further and further, and I'm just holding it to that standard that it's established in the past. So, yeah, that is number 8, Natsume Yujin Show. Go! And now we're on to number 7. Number 7 is Boku no Hero Academia. I'm not gonna lie, this show was a lot lower. I think it was like at number 10 before I actually sat back and thought about it. I thought it was really fun, but it felt really safe. Because, it's about superheroes, kids going to training through school. But when I think back about moments and I was rewatching scenes, the thing that happens in it's when you're making these lists, it's very, very biased toward recency. So when I was looking back on this show, I was like, yeah, I had a ton of fun watching it, but it seemed pretty safe. There's a lot, it can go a lot of places. But then I thought back to it, I started rewatching some scenes. It's like, even though it is so, it seems like something like this has been done, it does it so perfectly that I can't really knock it for it. Oh man, what am I trying to say? Oh, All Might is such a fantastic character. Izuku is as well. I think that's his name, the main character. It's just a show where you're really, really rooting for the characters. The cast is exceptional. Most of the you want to know more about a lot of them, and I think one of the coolest things about it is that it keeps the villains very, very mysterious, and there's constant foreshadowing. They thrust the heroes into situations very early, proving their worth, and the whole situation with All Might and stuff. I don't want to talk too much about it because I want people to watch this series. It's insane. It's really about a normal guy who wants to be a superhero because they live in a time where it's there's a ton of superheroes that go to this academy. He's a normal guy that has no powers, so how is he gonna be a superhero? But he keeps dreaming. He aces the test and he's ready to go. He is like the only person that is able to attend this academy because of scores alone, and he's really ridiculed for it because a lot of his peers have powers. I think when you first see it, the entire classroom has powers, including the teacher, I'm pretty sure, and he's ridiculed for it. He's like a no power. I don't remember if there was an actual name for the people that don't have powers, like Harry Potter moguls and stuff like that, but you really pull for this guy. And then the training that he does, I love training segments so much. He has a great foil to him, as not really an antagonist, but just someone who he's competitive with. You're really pulling for that character as well. I don't even remember his name, I'm not gonna lie, but I know exactly what he looks like and his antics and stuff. Constantly acting like a thug. So yeah, I think this series has so much potential. Next season is a tournament arc. I love tournament arcs. I've already talked about this with Food Wars, but damn, DBZ really got me into the tournaments and stuff. And then when I watch sports anime, and there's this next level freaking tension when it's like an elimination sort of tournament, almost like if someone's life is on the line. You have kind of similar feelings. You're really pulling for someone. So I'm really, really excited for where this show is going to go on, and I think it has a very high ceiling. That it has it has a ton of time to improve, but even in its state right now, I think it deserves a spot this high. Even though when I was first thinking about it, it wasn't that like that. But again, I do think it does this thing so perfectly. One of the best fight scenes of the entire year, the animation wise, the entire year occurs in this show. I think what was it, Bones that did this show? Man, they couldn't have found a better studio. The designs of the characters, the uniqueness of the powers, it's really something that I have a soft spot for. So that's why it's where it is. So there we go. Number 7 is Boku no Hero Academia. Now we're on to number 6. So I think that this show is a show that absolutely got shafted by people that hate One Punch Man. Maybe not hate One Punch Man, but talk about overhype. I don't think that One Punch Man is... Okay, we're talking about Mob Psycho 100. Let's start with that. Written by the creator of One Punch Man 1. So there's a lot of association that went into this, and I saw so many people talking shit about this show, and I can't understand why, but it really, really pisses me off. Like, it's one thing when I think that you did not enjoy the show, okay? And it's another thing when you're talking about overhype and not giving a show a chance. One Punch Man, what One Punch Man did in terms of animation, fight scenes, comedy, was done amazing. There is a huge case to be made about seeing that series as like a measuring stick for how adaptations are done, because when you look at that stuff, that is it's next. There's a level of passion in the show. It didn't even have the biggest budget, and it got a huge following. And there's always this phenomenon. It doesn't matter what it is. If something is liked to a astronomical degree, there will always be a huge number of haters, whether that's with merit or without merit. This show suffered because of the hate that One Punch Man got. It doesn't matter if it's anime, it doesn't matter if it's movies, it doesn't matter if it's sports. Like, the teams that win the most have the most hate because it's not your team winning. The movies that are most critically acclaimed, that's where a bunch of people are going to say, oh, it wasn't that good, and make really nonsensical arguments. Now, there are certain... I'm not saying that this is perfect, but I've seen arguments for the sake of, like, just hate. Like, it's so plain and simple to see. If you make a sound argument about it, I'm willing to listen. I'm not saying it's the best show ever. I'm just saying that had a huge impact on the show, and it was overlooked. Now, let's start talking about Mob Psycho 100. Mob Psycho 100. I had more fun with Mob Psycho 100 than One Punch Man in terms of story. Now, spectacle, it is arguable. In my opinion, One Punch Man I had more fun watching spectacle-wise. They're two very different shows. Even though you could say that the main character of Mob Psycho 100 is really Saitama with hair, like in terms of looks, it's just the style that one draws in. For most of the characters in Mob Psycho, once again you have a character that is very, very overpowered, in the sense that he is born gifted. Very different from Saitama. He worked hard for it. It's a stupid reason, but it's funny because of the reason. He's born with spiritual power in a normal household, and he's been using this power, not doing anything like crazy with it, like showing off some cool tricks to his brother and accidentally doing some things. He can see little spirits wherever he goes, where most people can't see anything. And he is taken in by a con man. Okay, throat's getting dry from all this talking. He's taken in basically by a con man named Reagan. Now, Reagan is probably he is easily my favorite character. I'm not gonna say probably. Reagan is my favorite character in that series, even though he is a normal ass man who just is like trying to basically scam people. He's a scam artist. He's perfect at it, and he does it in the most funny ways. But he is basically, I say the word basically too much, Mob, the main character's mentor, teaching him that just because you have power doesn't mean you should exercise it against other people that are less gifted than you. And this is a huge, huge lesson for Mob when he was young, and he's kept that mantra moving forward. And now we're going to basically get into, he is cornered often, and one of the main things that I think separates this show from One Punch Man is the emotional aspect. This show is about emotion. Mob's only weakness is that most of the time he is completely emotionless. Like, the way he speaks is very one tone, but he gets to the point sometimes where you can't handle it anymore. And that's where the 100 part of Mob Psycho 100 goes. Mob, psychic powers to 100. There's a meter that is consistently shown throughout the show that it's going to 100%. And it's great the way they show it. Like, just the emotional state. Like, how is he doing right now? It's going up and down, mainly up. But how is he able to handle adversity? And he wants to embody his master's principles of not, like, growing out of control, not exercising his powers in a bad way. But at times, he can't handle it. And when he gets to 100%, his emotion, whatever emotion that got into there, goes to the extreme. And it's so crazy watching these scenes. One reason is the visual spectacle. You are on the edge of your seat when it is going to that point. Like, think of any emotion, and they're probably going to get to it. I'm waiting for a season 2. But we've seen a few emotions the first one, and it's insane. These moments, you can really... And the thing is, you can sympathize with them. Excuse me. That's really strong. You can really, really sympathize with this guy when he gets to this point. He's really naive, and there are a lot of things, he wants to have a normal life. He has a girl in school that he likes, but he doesn't know anything about approaching women. He's a short, small guy. He doesn't think that he's attractive. He thinks he's average at best. He thinks that his older brother, who's basically a genius, is better than him as well, even though he's so gifted. Is really humble dude. And just seeing him in these different situations, seeing like spirits try to take advantage of him, seeing other psychic users take advantage of him, Reagan himself taking advantage of him in different ways, and how he responds to these kinds of things is really, really, really fun to watch. And I'm telling you, like, you're surprised at like how like powerful some of these things can be. And at the same time, like, I talk about how, like, I think that from a moral and thematic perspective, this is probably stronger than One Punch Man. But it also has that other facet to it that it's hilarious. Like there was never an episode that I watched of Mob Psycho 100 that I felt like nothing happened this episode. I didn't enjoy myself. It was always to the highest degree. Like, that's something that cannot be understated, the value. That's why I love One Punch Man so much. That's why I love this show. And that's why I love the shows that are above this. Now, I think this could be higher. I think when I was talking about the interchangeability of this series, I had this all the way at number 3 at one point. And then, it just kept shuffling. So you could think of this as a 3 through 6 type show. And I think the reason why I'm so passionate about it is because of how many people are, like, question it. It's like, I had comments about people asking, like, how could you say that this show is that good? Like, really? It's like, yes, I'm not joking at all about this show. I loved it to pieces, and I'm excited as hell I would say that if there was a One Punch Man Season 2 announcement, and I love One Punch Man, or, like, and they announced, like, Mob Psycho 100, I'd be just as excited for the next season of that, too. And that's not a small compliment. Like, it would be as, like, amazing as getting another season of JoJo's. Another Haikyuu season. Like, okay, maybe not Haikyuu. Let's calm down a little bit. But, when you look over at my anime list, and I have this show at a 10... that is my level of enjoyment, not critical opinion, though I think critically this show would be fantastic as well. But when you look at my anime, it's just like, what did I enjoy the most? If I give, like, DBZ a 9, it's not because it deserves a 9 critically. Like, even I know that much. But, like, that is a childhood. I think I'd give it a 10, actually. It's like a childhood thing. There's a nostalgia factor. That is also something that feeds into my enjoyment. So a lot of people, like, look at my anime list and they go on it like, oh man, I'm going to sit back and this is going to be like a critical masterpiece. Like, sometimes you just want to sit back and have a lot of fun. And this show has that and themes and stuff. I feel like I'm shouting, but anyways, that's enough about this show. We have 5 more shows to go and I'm talking too long about this, but yeah. When we get up here, it's yeah, I get a little, I lose a little control. Yeah. Okay. That was number 6. Let's go to the top 5 now. Number 5. Oh man. I had difficulty with this show as well, just placing it. This is Sakamoto desu ka? And you might be laughing at that, like, Sakamoto top 5? I don't know about that, but this is a testament, this and one more show on this list, is a testament to just how, like, dangerous judging a book by its cover can be, basically. Not to be, like, cliche, but I always do those season previews, right? And I get a lot of suggestions, but when something gets a huge following, like there's a ton of people asking me to check out something, there's something to it. And there are a lot of shows that I would have missed that I enjoyed the shit out, and this is one of the prime examples. The synopsis of the show is basically, a guy is perfect. He does every single thing that he does perfectly. You watch the trailer and it looks like just this pretty boy guy doing pretty boy things, and it's just like sparkly and like, it's like it was like, okay, maybe this is like a shoujo type show or what. And just that impression that I got made me think that I wasn't gonna watch it at all, much less live react to it. I ended up live reacting to it. It's one of the funniest shows I've ever seen. The reason, like I was saying earlier, sometimes I feel like comedy is undervalued for like critical acclaim or like thematic resonance or something like that. But this show made me smile so much and laugh so hard that it was impossible, like, for this to be lower. I feel like I got to the point where I was like, okay, this is a top 5 show. It's a top 5 show. There's like no way around it. I look back at my reactions and I'm like the level of fun I had with this show was amazing. And it pains me to say that there's no more of this. I don't think there's any room for any more. Like, we got an epilogue, like OVA type thing. Like, it's yeah. That is like the premise. You just have to watch it. It's really hard for me to recommend. Like, basically, it goes, this guy is doing everything perfectly. You'll see situations where it's like, a problem occurs, and he fixes it in a strange way perfectly. It's like, there's no way that should have worked, but this man is so perfect that it worked. It's like, it leaves you like freaking going bonkers. It's like, what the why did he do that? It doesn't even make damn sense. But he did it. And then you talk about, he has to also deal with jealous people trying to get at him, and they're trying to make him look uncool. And it's just like unconsciously cool. Like, this might be the coolest character ever made. Like to that degree. It's like, this man is like so like the theme song of this. What is it? Is it coolest? And the theme. Oh man, dude. Speaking about openings, Mob Psycho 100's opening. Watch that. I think it's the second opening. That one's amazing. Let's see. Can I see anything else on this list? Ajin's opening was amazing as well. Yuri on Ice. Danganronpa 3. If you got like the future arcs opening is amazing. I just want to throw these out before I forget. I love that opening. And then Boku no Hero Academia. And then Sakamoto desu ka, and then the next number 4, 2, and 1 have great openings as well. And I just want to throw those out. Now, I don't remember which ones are like kind of spoilery. I know that Mob Psychos isn't, Ajin's isn't, Yuri on Ice isn't, and Danganronpa's like, maybe. I'm not entirely sure, but it's just so cool. I think people should watch it. But yeah, that theme song is Watch that opening. Even that, like, it'll get you in such a pleasant mood. It's crazy. Maybe, of course, I'm talking about comedy here. So, I can see, like, I can understand, like, it not resonating with you. There are shows every season that people find hilarious that other people just don't. Like, Shimoneta. I couldn't watch it. Prison School. I love the shit out of Prison School. I hate ecchi stuff most of the time, but it was hilarious. It had resonance with me, and a lot of people it didn't. So I'm gonna just give that caveat. Everyone has a different sense of humor, but this, oh man, it's just so much fun. It's so much fun. That's what it has going for it, and it can't be understated. It can't be understated. It just, yeah, it's fully deserving of a spot this high. So that's Sakamo with this guy at number 5. Number 4, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Diamond is Unbreakable. JoJo's. I feel like it doesn't matter. Like aside. Okay, let me talk to it. Let me just speak about this. I recently did a podcast about this, so if you're really curious about my in-depth thoughts, again, I'm gonna point you at McKinsey Critiques channel. I went on there with about like 4 or 5 other people, and we talked about what we enjoyed about the show, what we didn't enjoy, and we compared basically the entire every part of the series and what we liked and didn't like, and some hypothetical questions and stuff like that. This is really fun. So that's over there if you guys want to see more in-depth analysis of it, basically. But I think that aside from the first part of season 1, JoJo's would be a top 10 show regardless of what like season it aired in. That's just me. I think that the first part, I think it's like 10 episodes, 9 episodes, 8, somewhere around there. You'll clearly know when it's part 2. Part 1 and 2 is in season 1. Part 2 is my favorite by far. Just because of Joseph is amazing. But if you're going to start JoJo's, I would say that the identity of it really changes to a more comedic focus after the first part. And I think that's when it starts to shine. Not to say that the serious parts aren't good. Now, season 4, the serious parts are really good. Like, the main villain of season 4 is one of the best villains I've seen. For sure. Not to say that he's my favorite villain in JoJo's, but he is one of the best villains I've seen. Now, what I'm basically going to say is like, you could possibly move into. It's possible to just watch season 4. Like I think it's hard to. Man, I feel like part 1, 2, and 3. Part 1 and 3 are very intrinsically attached to each other. It's really part 3 is finishing up part 1, so I feel like you wouldn't have the same emotional resonance and that payoff if you just snuck into part 3. I was about to say part 3. I feel like part 4, it's possible to jump in and enjoy the shit out of the show, but I do recommend starting from the beginning because, like I said, the first like 7, 8 episodes, it's enjoyable. Like, don't get me wrong, but when you hear about JoJo and its rabid fan base, like they just love everything about JoJo, I think it really starts coming into its own once you get to part 2, and that's where a lot of that stems from. Part 1 is very different because the main protagonist, Jonathan Joestar, is like this noble guy who wants to do everything, like he's freaking chivalrous as hell. But my favorite villain is also introduced in part 1, and he really makes that entire part for me. But once you get to part 2, part 3, and I think you're on the trail right away once you're on part 2. It's like, all right, we're going all the way through. There are people that complain about part 3. It's like 50 episodes long. So some people complain about pacing, but I didn't have that issue at all. So yeah, with that context in mind, if you are absolutely like you have no like desire to watch any of the rest, and maybe you want to jump into part 4 just to get an introduction to the series, I think it's possible. There's going to be a few characters that are a couple characters that are recurring characters that you won't really understand, but it is a self-contained story in the fact that it's in a town that is not really referenced in any other part, and the very notion of stands, the powers that like are present in part 3 and 4 aren't as heavily like explained, but the villain is self-contained in this part. It's really about this town with all these people with different powers coming up and basically fighting the main characters for one reason or another. They're popping up all over the place. They're really trying to figure out why this is happening. Like, you don't just get powers out of the blue, and it's an investigation into this. At the same time, there is a bunch of there's a serial murderer on the loose, and a large part of it is a murder mystery. And trust me, it's a great murder mystery. So if you just want a taste of it, I think that is something to follow. But my heavy recommendation is to start out with part 1 with a caveat in mind that it changes at part 2 about 8-ish episodes in, and gets phenomenal. So yeah, JoJo's always has a place very high for me, so that is going to be number 4. Number 3. This show is so deserving of so much more than I feel like it gets credit for, and really skipped over by a lot of people. Probably because of episode 1. But I can't fault people because the first episode is very interesting, but it does not give you the picture of the show at all. And the show that I'm talking about is Showa Genroku Rakugo Shinju, otherwise known as just Rakugo. I have made countless recommendations for this in random videos, and I really should have just made it like a review or like a recommendation freaking video, because I really think this show deserves all the love and respect possible. I feel like I'm on a mission to get this seen by as many people as possible, because it is like the hidden gem of years. I think it's that phenomenal. What is it about? So when I was talking about, I have all my reactions up. If you go to my Facebook group, link is in the description. I have episodes 1 through 13 of season 1. Season 2 is going on right now. So it starts off with a guy getting out of prison who heard Rakugo, which is the art of storytelling, verbal storytelling. A performer gets on stage, tells you a story, and enacts every single character with his voice and hand gestures and motions and stuff. So it's a really big exercise in voice acting. And just by itself, I think is very interesting, but that's not really what makes this series. Now, this guy was in prison. He thinks that he was really moved by the guy that showed up in prison. This guy, there's rankings in Rakugo, and this guy is at the top of the rankings right now. He comes in, he wants him to take him as his apprentice, basically does so, and goes, you see his performance, and you see a lot of character moments in the first episode, but that's all episode 1 is. Episode 2 is the rest of the show. There is a flashback. The flashback telling the story of how this master became a master. And it really tells the story of how, first of all, I say it's a story of friendship, because he is apprenticed with one another person who is his complete opposite personality, and the dichotomy between them and their interactions is pure gold. I'll say that right away. There is drama in the form of romance, and where it's leading, it's crazy, what is going on, with that, it's one of the best romances I've seen. Let's just put it that way. And then there's also this tension from episode 1. There's a mystery of oh man, I shouldn't talk about it. Okay, I'm not gonna say that because it feels like it's a pretty big point. Yeah, I can't. That's a spoiler. And the other thing is, these two, like, the survival of Rakugo, which is like traditional theater, in the following eras. Like, this is an old type of storytelling. And I will say, from the get-go, episode 1 really gets people jarred because of how difficult it can be to follow the Rakugo itself. And it's also very difficult to sometimes understand the humor of it all. When I was live reacting, it's really a show that's really hard to live react to because you're trying to like really pay attention to this Rakugo at times, and it's just not clicking with you sometimes, and you feel like an idiot. But like I said, this Rakugo is merely the engine that drives this narrative forward. It's not what it's actually about. It's actually about the art form and how it's going to live through the ages. It's about this relationship these two people have. It's about that romance, and it's about a certain tragedy that occurs. That's what I'm going to say. And that tragedy is alluded to in episode 1, so that's not, I guess, spoiler at all. But it's just the drama of it all and the emotions that it brings out is just, it needs to be seen by everyone. And I mean that unequivocally. I think every single person should give it a shot up to like give it the 3-episode treatment that I give most shows and get back to me on it. Like, if you're not at least somewhat sold on it, and it progressively gets better and better and better and better and better and better to the point where I was extremely depressed when it ended. Like, that's the level that I got to. And now we're on season 2, and it's going fantastically, though I think it's not quite as good as season 1 yet. I have high hopes. So, yeah, I've got other people starting it. I've been giving recommendations to other live reactors, trying to get more and more people to try to watch this show. And to the people that have watched it, they know how fantastic this is. So, 100%, please watch the show. Please. Oh, man. All right, guys. On to number 2. Number 2 is Haikyuu Season 2 and Season 3. I put them together because I didn't want them to really take up more than one spot. More Season 2 than Season 3, for me, personally. I think Haikyuu might be a fantastic. It is a fantastic place to start if you've never watched a sports anime before. I think that my top recommendations for people beginning to watch sports anime would be Haikyuu, Kuroko basketball, as well as Hajime no Ippo, which is my favorite series of all time. It's a boxing anime. Really, it's an older one, but it's got more recent iterations. But what is so fantastic about sports anime, I've talked about this a billion times, I'm going to say it again, is the characters. You can love, hate the sport itself, but the characters are consistently strong as hell in sports anime. It is the most consistent genre that I've ever watched. It is always at least entertaining, if not amazing, for like almost every case that I've seen. So I was one of those people that would never give sports anime a chance when I first started watching anime. And I eventually got to the point where I was watching, I started off watching other live reactors talk about these things. And I was watching other people, live react to this stuff. And I was like, okay, maybe they're watching this. I don't want to be left out. So I'm just going to watch this with them. And it was like a begrudging start. And it was completely I started with Kuroko in sports anime, so I have a bias. So I do think that Kuroko might be something that is easier to start with because not only does it have really cool and unique characters, but it also has a shonen manga esque element where there's pretty much powers going on at the same time, but they're in the context of sports, of the sport itself, of basketball. The power to make a shot from anywhere. The power to improvise, amazing. The power to pass in like an insane way, but the presentation of it all is fantastic. There's like power-ups and stuff like that. So if you have not been introduced to a sports anime, I think that's a good place to start. Haikyuu is the other one. Haikyuu is a volleyball anime. And yeah, it's the team sport, and I think that Haikyuu has the team that I root for the most, that I want to win the most. You really, really, really get invested in these guys, and the animation is supreme. Like the camera angles are like, holy crap! One of the best camera show examples of camera angles, like you guys would be familiar with, Attack on Titan, when they're doing the swinging, like the sweeping motions and stuff. This has like that, but for like volleyball, and it's like it looks beautiful. And there is this like, I am out of my chair shouting. Like if you guys watch most of my reactions, I'm not the type that yells too much. I'm not the type that is laughing at every single line. But this show got me so damn hype that I would like be like curling my knuckles till they got white, or like holding my face, or like jumping out of my chair. That happened multiple times in these 2 seasons. And I mean, I think season 3 gets to the point where it's going to be a little time before season 4 shows up, but I'm looking forward to it. Like you can't believe it. It's hard to wait, but I'm gonna have it out of my mind. I am not the type to go read a manga because I can't wait, so I'm gonna continue to wait. I think that if you have been watching my reactions, you don't really need an in-depth analysis of this, right? You know that I love these to hell. It's number 2 in this freaking list. You know, like these matches were amazing, and the development both in skill and character that they had in these 2 seasons for almost all of the characters was what really, really cemented this so high on this list. So for those of you that have not watched Haikyuu, I'll give you another synopsis. Main character really introduced right in the beginning. Hinata is a really, really short dude. Now, when you play volleyball, height is like amazingly important because you're going to be jumping over people, you're going to have reach, you're going to have power. This is a small guy whose idol was this national sensation, basically known as the Little Giant. He was also a short guy, about the same height as Hinata, and he took his team to the national championship, and he felt like if he worked hard enough, he could be like this guy. Now, he didn't have the best junior high experience. He was a tiny guy. Their school wasn't as enthusiastic about it as he was, but he was going to a new school, and he ends up at the school of one of the guys that he really didn't like. And they have to work as a team now. And this guy, my favorite character, was known as the king, basically, because he would constantly command people, say they weren't good enough. He got to a point where he was almost looked at like as a tyrant, so people started leaving him. So he has this confidence in himself and his leadership ability that he wants to like bring back. They also end up on a school that has like a legendary past, but in recent years they've grown like, lower and lower, while other powerhouses have risen up. There are like basically like a thug type character, but he's hilarious. The comedy and the interaction between the characters is really what gets them going. So there's this small guy who's competing with all these huge guys, and his inspiration, you want to really really want to support him. And then there's his foil, born like a prodigy, but has something of his own to prove. And these are the kinds of things that you're really rooting for. It's like you're rooting for them to win, but you're also rooting them to like stave off their demons and stuff like that. So I never watched volleyball before I watched the show, really. So I didn't have an interest in volleyball. I didn't have an interest in basketball when I was watching Kuroko. I didn't have an interest in boxing when I was watching Ippo. So it's really, really opened my eyes also to sports. I'm now actually watching basketball. I've watched some volleyball. Yuri on Ice got me to watch some professional figure skating more closely. I watch Yaomushi pedal, so I understand more so the intricacies of how many variables there, like just like how insanely like what am I mean how difficult like even long range bicycling can be, and how many things that are variables in that, because that was really something I looked down on before. All these stuff, like I'm watching a rugby show right now. It's not the best show, but just learning about rugby's been really interesting. Baby Steps. I watched Baby Steps, and that really made me a little sour because I'm a huge tennis fan. It's almost like the sports that I don't know about are the ones I enjoy more than the ones I do, because at times I feel like, if you don't know a show, the one thing that sports anime really do is they will try to explain the shit out of everything. They'll assume that you know nothing about it. And I like that for the most part. When I was watching Baby Steps, like, I know what a forehand is. I know what a backhand is. I know what a deuce side is. I know what advantage is. I know what serve and volley is. I know what a chip shot is. I know what a slice is. I know it's like they spent so much time with that stuff. And I hate that the show that I watch has like no budget. It's like the animation just trash, and the characters aren't as cool as the other ones. Well, I mean, it's not complete trash. It's just like when you have a fast-paced game like tennis, you need to have the ball move more than it needs to go like smooth. It just shouldn't go duh, 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 and then the still frame shots and stuff. Anyways, this isn't about Baby Steps. So I'm just making the case for people to start. I'm gonna probably do this every year. I'm just like, I feel like I probably did last year too, with Kuroko. So yeah, Haikyuu second season on to number 1. You guys probably already know what it is, but Number one. There was no doubt in any of your minds that actually watched my reactions to what was going to be number 1. It's like while I was watching it became number 1. I wasn't even finished with it, and I could tell it was going to be number 1. Gintama 2015. It ended in I should have explained this at the beginning, but any show that ended in 2016, it's on this list. There's a reason why Gintama 2015 wasn't on my previous list. What can I say, man? This freaking shocked me, how good this was. It's it shocked the hell out of me. There is a 2017 season going on right now, and the excitement I get from that right now is really because of 2015. People that don't know Gintama or don't watch Gintama think that it is merely like a comedy, something that is a parody of a lot of things, and that is certainly a huge part of it. But what really gave Gintama 2015 as elevated as a rank as it got right now is its serious story arcs that have been building from the very beginning. There is so much foreshadowing, and there are so many arcs that come together and contribute to this, really going towards the ending of Gintama in general. That you just have a complete vested interest. There's so many shocking revelations that, for the most part, make sense. And I have those comedy segments with serious arcs interspersed in between them serve as a way to really, really start getting attached to these characters, to the point where once they start getting put in very, very, very dangerous conditions, it destroys you. I was bawling in one of the episodes. Bawling. I've only cried twice in reactions. I couldn't stop myself. And it was just a misunderstanding. that was one of the hardest like videos I've ever done because of how much I love. Not even really, you couldn't even really say it was like a core cast member that was in danger, and I was it's like I couldn't control myself. I was like sniffling, crying, freaking hard to look at the camera. Like, oh my god, like. There's a reason why this is so high. Not only does it do comedy to near perfection, the only downside I would give Gintama is really you need to have a more... Sometimes there are episodes which rely heavily upon references, and if you don't get the references, that a lot of it can be lost on you. I will concede that. But there is 99% of the rest, like just the rest of it is just phenomenal in every way. The comedy like you wonder, like, is Sriracha, like, the author, like, on acid when he's thinking of these comedy segments? Like, what is like, it's mind-blowing what is going on. And these ideas come from nowhere. There is, like, in the parody segments from shows that you love are, like, done, like, some of the best, like, DBZ. One of my favorite episodes is about, like, Death Note, and you're, like, having, like, a freaking, like, a strategic battle mentally that you see in other anime over, like, who's gonna eat something. It's, like, and it makes it so, like, it becomes a mental battle for when people start sitting on like freaking toilets and they have no like toilet paper. What are you gonna do in that situation? And it becomes really intense and really funny for no reason, and it works. And at the same time, this is a show about basically a country of samurai that were invaded by Amanto aliens, and there's so much creativity that they can lean on, so many lineages, people that, like, you know, there's an entire universe here, and compelling characters and backstories that they can bring in about different factions and different races, and why one race would be more powerful than the other, but why, like, you know, like, there's, like, backstory from wars, and it just next level stuff. What can I say? I think that you absolutely need to watch Gintama if you haven't. And it's my number 3 right now. I think it's very close to number 2 right now over Hunter. And yeah, I feel like at the end of this series, it will be number 2 or maybe even number 1. But it's hard for me to get away from Hippo, though. I have a different kind of emotional attachment to Hippo. But it's one of those, like, once every, like, decade good shows. It's that damn good. And it's continuing to be that damn good. Oh my god. Yeah. Huge fan. Alright, guys, that's going to be it for my top 10. What did you guys think? What did you agree with, not agree with? Let me know if there's any of these shows that I've convinced you to watch. I'm really, like, I'd be so proud if you watch some of these shows like that you haven't even heard of, especially Rakugo. That's, like, really having an audience like this and being able to influence people into watching shows that they normally wouldn't watch, give attention to masterpieces and stuff like that, is one of my favorite parts of doing this. Not to mention, like, you know, like, sharing experiences and having discussions with people. So yeah, I'd love to see your lists. I'd love to see what you agree with, disagree with, and I'd love to see what you guys are going to give a chance to that you haven't already. So yeah, that's going to be it. That is my top 20 of 2016. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And as always, thank you for watching. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.